After 3 long months, I'm finally able to do some analysis here on this YouTube channel. Ahead of this test match, I was really excited to see the return of the Six Nations, and I was very excited for a close scoreline. We didn't exactly get that, however. We got the Irish's biggest ever away win against the French as they absolutely destroyed them. We've got a lot to get into here for today's video, so for those who are new to the channel, my name's Max, and I just want to say a huge thank you to my patrons as well. This is really just hugely meaningful ahead of the full context of the Six Nations, and I'm starting to wonder, maybe we have got the winner of the tournament confirmed already, because Ireland were just immense. And for today's video, I'm going to show you exactly how the Irish won the test match. So everybody, let's get into this. What I'll now show you guys is an animation I used frequently during the 2023 Rugby World Cup. For those who are new to rugby, a very common tactic in the Andy Farrell era has been for Irish attackers to wrap around from the inside shoulder of a teammate to the outside shoulder of their teammate, so that they can artificially create more carriers out wide and force an opposing defence to drift. We'll now cut to 15:37 in the match. To show the Irish attack in freeze frame, I'll label all of the Irish players' names as we establish with the blue axis, a pretty obvious hands down the line. The ball can clearly shift downwards from Doris and all the way to Keenan at fullback, while the French defence lines show us who is marking who. Only problem is, none of the white arrows are pointing towards James Lowe, who we'll zoom in towards. Lowe has come off his wing, which is around the red cross, to get on the outside of this diamond-shaped formation between Aki, Van der Fleer and Crowley. Because Lowe is in such a position, he can wrap around to Van der Fleer's outside, stretch Henshaw and Keenan to come wider, therefore forcing Moefana to choose between tackling the two outside men, with Kelvin Nash unmarked out of frame. Now, as we showcase the attack at full speed, Lowe's sudden handling of the ball leaves Penaud all alone in the backfield. As we freeze the frame, he's forced to come off his wing and allow for Ramos to mark Nash. While Ramos' presence out wide is helpful when Aldred tackles Aki, Penaud, on the wide shot, is now suddenly needing to abandon his ability to mark Nash. Aki's offload to an unmarked player means that even if Penaud catches Gibson-Park, Nash can still finish in the corner if this pass is given here. No need though, Gibson-Park gets the try. During a bye week of the Six Nations, I'm pretty keen to share with you guys a bit of a project that I worked on during the off-season, and I think that, after making that video, I was definitely onto something when I mentioned my wee point about the decoy runners. The animation you can now see on screen is a strategy that's become a little overused in Test rugby. What you see on screen is a repeatable pattern where three forwards get into a diamond-shaped pod so that they can hide a distributor in behind themselves. With the head of the pod flanked by two decoy runners, the distributor is under less pressure to pass out wide. As we now cut to 28:50 of the match, France know exactly what's happening. Ireland have done this so many times before. Only thing is that when we freeze frame on 28:54, Furlong isn't trying to pass to Lowe, who is behind the pod. While Lowe could pass to Beirne and to Aki on the outside, Furlong takes the ball into contact. That means Beirne must be the decoy runner at the next phase. Right? Jack Crowley takes the pass at the next phase. He's got Aki outside Low in a hands down the line, while Malvaka absolutely nails Crowley in a massive hit. We suddenly see a lock with nobody in front of him after freezing the frame. How about we rewind to see what's happened? Daunty at 12 appears to be eyeing up Low as the white arrows show us. He's a world-class defender who thinks he's read the play. The problem is, guys, that because Daunty has become so used to facing Irish decoy runners, he gets completely blindsided by an unbelievably obvious play. While Stevie Wonder could have read the attack if presented to him, Daunty's prior knowledge makes this far mentally harder to read himself. With Beirne suddenly taking the ball, Daunty has to throw his arm out in a Hail Mary. Beirne scores the try after some unbelievably bad tackle technique lets him through. Now guys, if you think France read this pretty poorly, let's just come up together and just imagine in our heads, how badly they could read this when they were down to 14 men. Wait. The referee in this match, Carl Dixon, adjudicated the two teams brilliantly, especially when it came to dealing with Paul Willemse. While I still believe France has the best forward pack in this tournament, the best forward pack in the tournament can't exactly stand out as much when it's down a man. Willemse received 2 yellow cards in the test, one for this offence, then the other for this one. The first decision is absolutely correct. The World Rugby law books clearly show us the framework of direct contact to the head with force being equivalent to a red card. But as we see in the laws, there's a clause on mitigating factors for this ruling. Now that I have this clause on screen at the same time as we observe the highlight of Andrew Porter's knee, we can clearly see that Willemse was charging at a target far too low to the ground for a red card to be warranted. Willemse's knee doesn't face the ground until after the clash. The second offence, there's no excuse for it. Willemse, like Sam Cane, doesn't know how to tackle. His left shoulder makes direct contact with Doris's chin before his left arm can even complete the wrap. As we see from the side angle, though Willemse's hips are bent before the tackle, meaning he clearly understands something about the height of tackles, he still refuses to target the chest or the waist. I hope I've helped you guys to understand why the ruling works this way, but before we get to discussing the halftime stats, there are 3 certainties in our lives. The first is death, the second is taxes, and the third is Damian Penaud scoring tries. Ahead of the first French try, Gael Fickou copies South Africa and binds to Winnie Antonio with both hands as the circle shows us. With Fickou already attached, Antonio can simply run it straight thanks to their combined weight of 246 kg. We'll now freeze the frame as Jalabert takes the pass from Luku to show Ireland's defence being forced to drift across the blind side. Thanks to Antonio beating 3 defenders, France have regained a man advantage. This gap is evident as there's a giant hole between Gibson-Park and Nash, while Penaud finishes thanks to Jalabert's pass. With our discussion on the first half now complete, we're just going to roll an ad break before we get into the halftime stats of this test match. And as you guys can see, the Irish are in the lead against the French by 17-10. The French were definitely still within the margin of scoring by halftime, but the problem was they were still very, very rattled by the point Penaud had scored that try at the end of the first half. While possession is very, very even, the Irish were controlling the game far more and they were using a lot of their kicking game to get real good access to the territory of the pitch. Neither team was running a ridiculous amount of meters per se, but they were definitely trying to move the ball as much as they could, and while the French were beating more defenders due to the bulk of their pack, the physicality really got lost on them after Willemse got sent off with the red card. Ireland were able to pass the ball a lot more as well. The fact that they had more men on the pitch meant there was more space for them to exploit, and they really did a good job, especially during Willemse's first yellow card, to get that first try of the test match. The one turnover of the half as well was won by Peter O'Mahony, the new Irish captain, succeeding the great Johnny Sexton, and the Irish were really able to shut down a lot of the French opportunities with some strong line speed. The French did make 3 offloads, but couldn't really generate anything off them. The Irish tackle percentage wasn't too much of a difference compared to the French because, well, the French were making more tackles, so they were doing a lot more stuff defending up front, and that's how I think the Irish were really able to get the mental edge by forcing those big French forwards to defend over and over and over. I think that, guys like Posolo Tuolangi in the second half probably came on earlier than the coaches were expecting to bring them on. The goal kick success, I don't think we'll talk too much about that because, well, first half. The ruck success, though, as I said, that breakdown dominance really gave the Irish a mental edge. With 100% of your rucks won, you're always going to make it very difficult for your opposition to get points on the board, and the fact that they couldn't win those turnovers and play with a broken field, it irritated the French quite a fair bit, and as I said, they lost that mental edge. With the line-out as well, that was definitely misfiring on those 2 occasions when it was stolen by Joe McCarthy, and the scrum success though, well, those stats there prove my statement about France having the best forward pack. You have to actually change your strategy with what the coach tells you to do. While the France forward pack is the best, they just could not adapt when it came to that approach to the breakdown, and that's why the Irish were able to keep that lead despite the fact that they were probably giving a few more penalties than their coaches would be happy with. Now, guys, we're going to roll into my coverage of the second half to explain how Ireland closed out the game. By the 46th minute, Ireland are back on the score sheet playing some simple yet genius rugby on the way to Calvin Nash's first test try. Because of this, Jalabert is having to run across towards Henshaw before following through with this defensive line so that Penaud can continue marking Nash on the wing. Henshaw, though, realises that Ireland are more likely to score if the French players I've circled can't drift across to reduce the effects of Ireland's advantage in numbers. Because Henshaw runs the line will animate here to get tackled by both Jalabert and Antonio, all of the players on Antonio's outside now have to run more meters so that they can defend next to Penaud. This is at its most obvious point when Caelan Doris, the real man of the match, picks up the ball. During Doris's pick and go, Toma Ramos has only now reached the ruck while Francois Cross is yet to reach a position from which he can support Penaud. Nash takes a simple pass from Doris to get his first try for his nation, while Paul Gabriag is able to get France another try and bring the scoreline back to a 7-point deficit. Ireland's bring their Maul so far into overdrive, you'd think they were Post Malone. While Doris and Beirne lift McCarthy, they fold towards their backline to put McCarthy behind themselves. With the French force unable to drive the Irish backwards, the French twist the Maul towards the touchline. Tuolangi, Olivon, Cross and Aldred all fall out of the Maul, which allows Sheehan to hide behind the rest of his team before following this animation to slot between Luku and Olivon to get the try, with Bundy, Aki and James Lowe also binding to Ireland's final Maul of the match. It's Ronan Kelleher who gets to have the last say in the final scoreline as he gives Jack Crowley, the new Johnny Sexton, one last conversion to kick. Seriously though, with a 21-point win for the Irish, I don't think it is exactly a controversial call to say that Jack Crowley has learned a lot of things from the time he spent with Johnny Sexton in late 2022 and throughout 2023. He's done a lot of work on his mental presence as a player with a person I know, and well, his mental skills coaching, it's definitely showing with his ability to run a game. Ireland were very smart in the way they exploited the fact that France were down to 14 men for most of the game, and the way they managed the possession with 56% by the end goes to show that Crowley did an amazing job with backing up his forward pack and giving them a platform to really just crush the Irish when it came to the attack. France did start to catch up on meters run. They were really getting desperate a few times, and well, though the defenders beat them with the same, the clean breaks were similar, Ireland looked like far more of a cohesive beast. There was not exactly the best version of cohesion when it was going straight from Luku to Dante. Jalabert was really starting to have to manage the team all by his own at one point when Luku came off. The French, I think the 7 offloads compared to the Irish 3 offloads, it kind of shows a bit more of that desperation they had on attack. They weren't having the patience to string together their set moves designed by the coaching staff. And the Irish, on the other hand, they remained far calmer and they looked like a team who had mentally moved on from that World Cup. As a few people are saying in the comments, you know, maybe that loss to the All Blacks was just a blip after all. The turnovers one as well, it goes to show again the Irish dominance of the breakdown. They finished the game with 4 turnovers. The French finished the game with 2 turnovers, including one to Nolan Le Garec, the reserve halfback, on his debut as well. The tackle percentage as well, while the Irish tackle percentage was a little bit lower than the French, Robbie Henshaw definitely did give them a huge boost when it came to threatening the French with some line speed. It was almost meeting the perfect medium between the Irish cover defence and the Irish rush defence, two very different varying defensive strategies that I have talked about here on this channel before, whereas obviously with the French sliding defence trying to go from one side of the pitch to the other, it got enormously difficult with Willemse off due to that red card. The goal kick success as well, really good to see Jack Crowley just nail all of them apart from the one just showing his confidence once again. The ruck success as well, this remained throughout the second half, even when Posolo Tuolangi came on for France to just be a pure battering ram, amazing at cleaning the rucks. The Irish still just held on for dear life and continues to slow the French ball at the breakdown. The lineouts as well, it continued to be a little bit of a struggle from France. Tuolangi is such a promising player, but does bringing him on a little bit earlier perhaps limits the options they have for that lineout. Posolo Tuolangi is 6'5". He is tall enough, but at 149 kg, perhaps is he too heavy to be lifted? I don't know. But the thing is, the scrum is one of many areas for your tight five forwards to focus in on. Focusing in on that maul, focusing in on that breakdown, that has to be done alongside the scrum. I think that France overreacted to Oxenchair destroying Dorian Aldegheri at the end of that World Cup quarterfinal, and they perhaps neglected to look at that maul, look at that breakdown after what happened with South Africa. I think that France, though they were conceding fewer penalties than the Irish, they looked like a team who hadn't completely healed from what happened in 2023, whereas the Irish, I agree with everyone, perhaps it was just a blip. So, what do I say about these teams going forward? It's going to be 4 long years ahead. If this is the time that France are going to be making the mistakes, let it happen now. Dupont's not there, he's playing sevens. Ntamack is still injured, and this is the time to really just chop and change, tinker around with who you have. This is the time where you have to make the mistakes, there, and, embrace them. The Irish, perhaps things are just going to go all well for them over the next 4 years, but, maybe a bit of an annus horribilis post-World Cup is what the French need to succeed in the long term after being almost like overdogs from 2020 to 2023 prior to that defeat to South Africa. The All Blacks, we haven't beaten them since 2018. Beating them at the end of this year would be, a really good way for us to get confidence back and for the French to make some mistakes to learn from. Every team has, their life cycle, and France probably need that reality check a bit more than the Irish, because while France have an embarrassment of riches in the top 14, the Irish, it does feel like they missed the opportunity with that golden generation. So this is probably the best possible result for both teams. I want to congratulate them both for putting a lot of effort into the game. Do remember as well, guys, if you liked today's video, do subscribe to me, like the video, and share your thoughts in the comments down below. My name's Max, you have watched my YouTube channel. It's been an amazing start to the Six Nations. I'll see you on the next video. Cheers for watching, guys, from Max.